Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another live here on Mission Minded Mondays with me, Asia Nasir, your favorite nonprofit strategist. I am also the founder of my company, Utopian Enterprise Business Solutions, where my mission is to help aspiring and existing founders to be able to fulfill their missions in real time. So, today we're going to be talking about a topic that is extremely important, especially around this time because we're embarking on fourth quarter. And for nonprofits, fourth quarter is no different than any other company because this is a time where you should be assessing where your company is throughout the year, what you've done as far as your financial outlook, your portfolio, where you are you in the black? um, are you geared towards being in the black? Setting yourself up for next year. This is the conversations that you should be having. If you are running a nonprofit organization, this is the time that you should be having those conversations with your board and seeing where you are. So today we're going to be talking about no margin, no mission. Let's talk about nonprofit budgets that work. And one of the biggest things that I see as a nonprofit strategist when my clients come to me and they ask me about why they're not getting grants, why their grants are not being approved. I'm applying for grants that meet, we're aligned with their mission and who they want to fund, and yet we're still not getting approved. Um, and one of the things that I always say is you have to be grant ready. Every organization, whether just starting or existing, you have to be grant ready. And one of the things that you have to take a look at as it relates to being grant ready is looking at where you are in all aspects as it relates to the infrastructure, your board, taking a look at your programs, but also looking at your financial portfolio, where you are. So that also determines what type of grants you should be looking for, because you have some grants that don't require a budget, but then you have some grants that absolutely require a budget, especially depending on how much you're asking for. So the larger your amount or your request, the more likely you are to have to submit a budget. And if you're not used to creating a budget, this is going to be extremely difficult for you. And so what happens a lot of times is you'll have a lot of nonprofit founders. Uh, they either don't have someone on their board or someone on their team that has the financial wherewithal or expertise to be able to assist in this aspect. So then what happens is we fudge numbers, and not intentionally to deceive or anything like that, but it's okay. We know that this is required, so we have to put an estimate of what we think it's going to be. And there lies, the big problem. There's no margin. You have no margin. You are assuming, you're putting up numbers that you think make sense. And when you are creating this grant application amongst the thousands of other grant applications, and yours has numbers that are just created versus those that is your competition, which are other nonprofit organizations that have a margin, that have someone assisting and making sure that the budget actually meets, what you're asking for, you're more than likely not going to be able to get that grant. And that's because it's made painfully clear that you don't know your numbers, that you're using numbers that don't fit what you're asking for as it relates to staff, as it relates to the administrative costs for that, or for the program that you're putting on. What you're describing, the numbers don't match what it is that you're describing, because you don't have a budget that has that breakdown for you. And so when you have that, it's going to be an uphill battle for your nonprofit organization to be able to get the funding that it needs to sustain the programs and the services that you want to serve. So there are three things that I want to share with you today that really helps you to be able to make that happen for your organization, or for you to enhance and for you to get better. So there's some things that have to happen internally in order for that to be translated externally for your organization. So let's talk about, as it relates to the margin, what are some three key points to ensure that you do have a budget? So, and why it's important, I just kind of mentioned some of it, but for it internally, for you to have an understanding, because I think when you understand the importance of something and how it connects the dots, you're more than likely to do it. You're more than likely to implement what you're learning. So the budget for any nonprofit organization works as a GPS. And a GPS, what does a GPS does? It gives you guidance, it gives you direction, it gives you clarity about where it is you're going, how to get there, right? So you can get to your ultimate destination. That's what a budget should be for a nonprofit organization. It should give a nonprofit organization direction, clarity, guidance, all of the same things that it would do in a literal sense. It does the same exact thing for your nonprofit organization. So one of the ways in which you use your budget as a guide for your nonprofit organization is stop just giving projections, but take a look at, if you provide this said program, whatever that program is, what would be the ultimate goal that you want for that program? If everything went right and it contained all the components that your organization want, what would that end goal look like? And then work like a reverse engineer, work backwards. So if we had this, and this, now what would be the actual cost? Not the what I think it's going to cost this, because now you have the components, because you're working from reverse. You're working from what the end goal is and then working backwards. So what would that entail? We would need this, we would need that, we would need a speaker, we would need speakers, we would need this type of supplies, we would need a venue, whatever it is. Now you have clarity as to and direction of what it is that you would need to have the perfect program. Now you work backwards to what will it cost to fund that program. You see what I'm saying? Budgets that work around programs is exactly what you want, because it's not general now. You're not giving general numbers, you're giving specific numbers. You're scouting, you're doing your due diligence, you're doing your research, you are doing exactly what it takes to be able to have specific numbers for those specific components that you mentioned to have the end result that your organization wants. So now you're not creating, well, this is the program that we want to put, we think it's going to be about this amount. No, now you're actually talking specifics, and that is where a sponsor or a corporate donor or even a grant committee, they can actually look and see, okay, this is built around the program. These are not general numbers. These are numbers that you have actually done your due diligence. We can see the breakdown. And so now it makes sense that the end number that you're asking for now matches all of the things that you have on your budget, that this is what the cost will be. And these grant committees, they have seen enough grant applications to know, like, yeah, this is the average cost of, what it is that you're asking for. Yes, this is an average cost for this or for that. It absolutely makes sense. Versus these general numbers, they're like, that doesn't, as I mentioned before, they can see and spot, this does not match the amount that you're asking for versus the program that you're describing. And what a budget should be is, as it relates to the being a GPS for your organization, it should be a living document. It should be a living document, not something that you create just for the application and then you go about your business and do what you want with the funds if you were to receive it. You want that to be a living document, so that way you stay within the budget. It's just like a household budget. When you get the family together and you're like, okay, this is the budget, we have to stay within this budget. Everybody has to do their part. And every month you're reviewing, Are we staying on target? That's what a living document should be for that budget should be for your nonprofit organization. It should be something that at least at your monthly meetings, you are reviewing. Are we on target? Are we staying within the budget? Are we, where we say we was going to be on that grant application, that we're right on target and that everything is moving as it should. And we're going to talk about that, some things that you want to also do aside from when you're creating your budget, what you should do aside from the actual costs themselves. But at least for the purpose of writing a grant application, now you have the numbers to match exactly what you need. And that if you were to receive the funds, now you can create the perfect program that it is that you want, because you reverse engineered that budget, because you work from back, meaning the perfect look, to how would we fund it now, and what are the components within that program, and what's the cost for each of those components. So that gives you a guide, that gives you clarity in anything that you do. If you're working in clarity, the more successful that thing is going to be. So that program, your budget, your sustainability for your organization and your programs and services is going to have a more successful rate than it not having it. Right? Also having a budget, meaning no margin. You have no margin, you have no mission. A lot of times you'll find nonprofit organizations, you'll see, if you're watching it, like say you follow a nonprofit organizations on any one of their social media pages, all of a sudden you start seeing them engaging in activities that you're like, well, I didn't know their organization did that. I thought their organization was about this. When you don't have a budget, that clarity, a lot of times what can happen, in order to just stay afloat, you'll have nonprofit organizations now embarking or collaborating on things that actually doesn't fulfill the mission. It distracts them from the mission, and it's called mission drift, right? Before you embark on anything, you as an organization, along with your board, the executive director, the board of directors, what you should be doing is sitting down on anything that you're looking to do and embark and ask, does this align with our core mission, meaning your nonprofit's organization? Does this align with our core mission, or is it a distraction? This is extremely important, because if it's a distraction, you're going to be using money that's not actually fulfilling the mission. And so when you have that review, or someone looking to give you money, they see, okay, well, you're asking for money for something that doesn't align with your mission. When I look at your website, or when I look at, because this is public record, when I look at the IRS, page, or if I see GuideStar and I see you're indicating, hey, this is what your organization is all about. Now you are asking for funding for programs or collaboration with those that have mission drift. It does not align with your core mission. And so that gives pause for people that want to give you money. So if you're wondering why you're not getting a budget, we're aligned with this company, that another organization that's doing good in the community. They may be doing good in the community, and it would be great to align with another organization that's doing good service in the community. But does their services align with your core mission to create a bigger impact? And if it doesn't, then what it is that you're doing is you're staying busy and not productive. Because you can be busy standing in place and you're moving, but you're not moving forward. You're not making a dent. You're not making an impact in what it is that you said you wanted to do for your organization and what you wanted to do for the community. So you only want, as an organization, to keep you with that clarity, that GPS, you want to only pursue what fuels your mission. You only want to go after what's going to fuel your mission. So when you have that budget, you know that you're only using those funds that what's going to further or to fulfill the mission. And anything outside of that is mission drift, taking you away from what it is. And then the money that you have is not being used to fuel your actual mission. So your services and the people you're looking to help it's going to be a deficiency. And what you should be doing, because part of understanding how to run a nonprofit and understanding the players within your organization is empowering your board of directors. Part of your board of directors is to create and secure funding for your organization, meaning they're ambassadors. They're speaking about the organization. They're seeking funding through their network, to fuel the mission. If they're bringing in money to the organization, then you should be able to empower them to be able to review those financial statements every month at your board meetings. If you're having a monthly board meeting, or if you're having a quarterly one, they should be able to review the financials of that organization to be able to see, are we staying on target? Are we now using funds for something that does not align with our mission? Because if you have a consensus and everyone's goal is to make sure that we are fulfilling the mission, this is someone, hopefully, within your board of directors, if you're drifting, is going to say, wait a minute, this is going away for this. We should be focusing on this. Now everyone's listening. It kind of holds you back and it keeps you mission minded. As I have, mission minded Mondays. It should keep you mission minded that this is what it's about and this aligns with our margin. Our margin says this is what we're going to use our money for, so it fuels the mission. So again, no margin, no mission. If you don't have a budget that is specific to this, and if you do have a budget specific to this, and you're aligning with something, it'll become crystal clear to you. This is not where our funds need to be going, because the question that you and your board asks is, does this align with our core mission, or is this a distraction? So if you're asking that, then this money that we've received, we're not going to put it towards that. We're going to put it towards what's going to fuel the mission. So again, as you can see, if you don't have a margin, it really, if you don't have a budget, it keeps you, or it allows you to be able to move away from what it is that you said you were going to do. And then everyone suffers. The organization suffers, the recipients that were relying on your services suffer, as well as the community at whole. So it's a lose-lose situation when you don't have a budget. All right. So strategy number 3 is, I call this like simple shifts or pivots, to make the numbers work for your organization and not work against you. So as I mentioned before, when you are writing a specific grant application and you're asking for a specific amount, that amount should align with what you indicated your program or your services was going to be. The numbers should make sense, right? So if you're given that grant, that's great. But your organization should not only be looking to get just that amount of money for that grant. You have other expenses, correct? So there are other funding streams that you should be doing, campaigns, fundraisers, individual, donations, Giving Tuesdays, all of those things. You should be participating as an organization to have what I call a 10 to 15% margin push, right? You want to have enough money to pay specifically for what it is that you asked for, but you also want to get those, and you want to have extra cushion for each of those programs as well. So that way, and the reason why I say this, let me just back up a little bit. The reason why I say every program or every service that you're providing should have a 10 to 15% margin or cushion, and that should not be put in on the grant application, is because grant committees don't like to see things like miscellaneous. This is for miscellaneous funds. This is, for general operations. They don't like stuff like that. They want to know exactly where is this money going, right? So that 10 to 15% margin, you don't necessarily want to put that on the grant application. You want to be able, as I mentioned before, utilize other funding streams to be able to create. So that's your campaigns, your recurring donations. That should be, if your nonprofit has a membership, all of the different things that we, fundraisers, all of those different things, that should be coming in addition to your grant application. That creates that 10 to 15% cushion on top of what your actual cost of your program or your services would be. Why is that important? Because things happen. Life happens. Unforeseen things happen. So you want to be able to create that cushion for those emergencies, that unforeseen thing. You want to make sure you have that extra cushion there. So that way now you're not going outside of the budget for something that had you allocated for, had you created a forecast for, that just in case, if I give myself 10 to 15, that keeps you in the black. And if you don't use it, great. But if you do need to use it, then you're still in alignment with the budget that your organization created of this is what we need in order to have a successful year. This is the cost that we need. That 10 to 15% margin push is just going to be extra in the event of there's an emergency. And we see things go up, prices just for supplies, systems in place, things like that. Sometimes it changes. So you'll have things like StreamYard. StreamYard, if you're using StreamYard had a change in price. I think it was last year, had a change in price. Zoom has had a change in price. So this allows you to be able to have that cushion for those things that happen, that now it's not going to cut into your budget. You have already allocated, you've already created that margin that allocates for those growth or emergency situations, right? So if you're like, whoa, geez, how do I do this? Well, if you have someone on your board, which you should, someone that, if it's the treasurer should have some type of experience in that. And if your treasurer doesn't, maybe you should look for someone who can volunteer for your organization that has that type of experience. Maybe an accountant, maybe a bookkeeper, someone who has the experience to be able to keep you in line by using systems that lets you know if we're on target or we're going over budget, or if we have that cushion room. And that's, you could use QuickBooks. QuickBooks is a great way for you to be able to see on a monthly basis what you're spending and what you're bringing in. So it lets you know if you're on target. And if your organization, just say you're getting started, you're like, we don't have the budget for that, you can also use Google Sheets. And so I'm not sure if they have a cost, but if it's Google, oh, hold on a second. Just had a blackout there. If you're using Google Sheets, if there is a cost involved, it's clearly not going to be the same if utilizing QuickBooks. So this allows you to track, as I mentioned before, your monthly spending versus your projections. This gives you, this is exactly what we're spending, even with that cushion. So we're good. And what this does, it keeps everybody accountable for the organization. This reduces wasteful spending. We're not spending things that we shouldn't be spending on. This is taking us away from the mission. This is going to interfere with us being able to fulfill our mission in real time, because we're utilizing funds that shouldn't be used for this. So this keeps everybody on their toes. This keeps everyone mission minded. This keeps everyone on point and accountable. And this also communicates to those grant funders, those corporate sponsors, that you as an organization know your numbers, So this is extremely important. So if you don't have a budget, if you're running an organization, nonprofit, it doesn't matter if it's small or large, you need to have a budget. And if you do not have a budget, that is probably why you're not getting grants approved. That's a huge reason why, is because you can't articulate effectively your need and why do you need the money. And two, this doesn't give you an accountability. So if you do receive money, you're kind of spending it as you go, and there's not a forecast of things to come, the programs that are coming. You're utilizing money that maybe you shouldn't be. And so this keeps you constantly in the red, because you're utilizing funds and not prepping for the emergencies, which is the cushion, and then asking for what you exactly need, doing a reverse engineer. This is what our organization needs, and then working backwards to fund that. So these are all tips and strategies that I wanted to share with you in order for you to understand that having a financial budget is a non-negotiable. if you're running a nonprofit organization. It is a non-negotiable. So this is something that you should be doing each and every year, each and every month. You should be reviewing it. If you have monthly meetings, if you have quarterly, that should always be part of your itinerary when you are meeting with your board of directors, is we have a discussion of where we are financially. And that's where your treasurer then, discloses the financial reports, so that way the whole organization, all of your board knows. And this continues to fuel them to continue to be ambassadors, because they are now aware as well, is that the money is being used exactly for what we said and what we asked for the money for. So when they're going out, reaching out to their network, there's no ambiguity, there's no confusion, there's no hesitation on their part in being able to ask for the funds that the organization needs, because they have the financial reports. So as the kids say today, we got receipts. So you have the receipts for your organization, and then now they can move forward and your organization can move forward. And I guarantee you, if you create that margin, it's going to be a game changer for you, the recipients, and the community at large. So that is what I wanted to share with you on our Mission Minded Monday today. Stay tuned, because in another 2 weeks, I'll be sharing another very important topic that your nonprofit organization should be considering, thinking about, and implementing in your organization. So God willing, see you in 2 weeks.